Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now welcome back to Oak Camp, my summertime or springtime retreat where I'm spending just over a week here in a clearing just outside the woodland. And as you know, if you've seen some others of the series, this is all about mental resilience, relaxation, and perhaps finding an equilibrium with nature. And I've had a few nights here now, and it's a very pleasant experience. However, there's one intrinsic element to camping, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's an absolute necessity, and that's the ability to make fire. Because without fire, for me, I would be unable to cook, I would be unable to stay warm, and you know, it's illumination as well. It's part of the whole ambience of camping. And for me, because I wouldn't say I'm heavily into bushcraft, but I enjoy the juxtaposition of living quite an ordinary, modern day life, as well as stepping outdoors and living perhaps a little bit closer to nature. So for me, lighting my fire isn't about using a match or a cigarette lighter. It's about using only the simplistic resources which I've brought with me and what I can find within nature. And today, and for the duration of my week, I'm lighting my fire every day using fatwood. Now I'm going to talk about that in a moment. I'm going to take you into the woods. I'm going to harvest some fatwood. This is quite easily accessible by anybody out there, so this is a skill which you could find useful yourself. And in order to do so, I am going to need 3 resources. Right? This is all I need to make my fire. Firstly, I am going to use a saw. This is quite simply a folding pruning saw. It's from the company called Baco, and very inexpensive, very practical. I've had this one for a number of years. This is not my first folding saw. Very useful in the outside world. I also need, in order to process my fatwood, a knife, a standard bushcraft knife. This is pretty, run-of-the-mill Fitzroy bushcraft knife. I'm going to feature this later in my series, talk more in depth about it. It's a very good knife actually. And in order to get those fire going, I need a ferro-cerium rod or a Firesteel. That's all I'm going to use today to get my fire going. But the first thing I need is the materials, the fatwood. So let us step into the woods. I'll explain what fatwood is. I'm going to harvest some. I'm going to show it to you. Then I'm going to light a fire using it live time with the tools I've just shown you. So, into the woods, shall we go? Okay folks, sorry about the dappled lights, but we've stepped into the woodland, and this is a mixed woodland, typical of many British areas. It's been man-planted over, well, decades ago, I guess. And there's a mixture here of deciduous trees and coniferous trees. Now, deciduous trees are the ones which drop their leaves in the autumn every year. The ones I'm looking for are coniferous trees, which retain their leaves throughout the year, often called evergreen. And they tend to, you recognize them because they look as if they're members of the Christmas tree family. And the reason I'm interested in the wood from this tree is because it's full of something called resin or sap, which is very valuable when it comes to lighting fires, because it creates something called fatwood. And I know this tree is rich in the resin I'm looking for because I can see it's been damaged here at some point. There's a gouge in the tree and lots of sap has run out of this injury to the tree. The intention of the tree is to, prevent infection getting in, so it pours the sap out, it protects that point. And the reason I'm interested in this tree is because as the tree pushes the sap around its circulatory system, a bit like blood around the human body, as some of these lower hanging branches have died, they're clearly dead, there's no greenery on them at all, the sap will stop moving around the tree and it will settle in the joints where those dead limbs meet the tree. And my goal is to cut off that limb at the point it meets the tree, and hopefully the bottom part of that branch is going to be inundated with the resin, the sap from the tree, which is going to be very useful to me. So I'm going to get up there and I'm going to cut one of those branches off. Okay folks, welcome back to Oak Camp. Now I've got my Fatwood log here, and if you're wondering why it's called Fatwood, that resin which is infused within my log, which in fact this one is very heavily infused, becomes almost liquid when it's heated up, and it bears a resemblance to lard or fat when it's in its liquid form, and it's also equally as flammable. Now, to give you an example of how well infused that limb was, this is a cross-section of the limb which I took from further along. So when I chopped my limb down, I took a bit off. That's where it looks like halfway along. Where it met the tree, you can see that it is, the animals are excited, it is red, and that is an indication that it is very heavily infused with resin. And that's exactly what we want, because we know when we process this in a moment, it is going to provide us exactly what we want to start a fire using a Firesteel, because that resinous material is very able to take a flame. A spark on it, woof, off we go, we've got a little fire going. So now I'm going to just process it. I'm going to take the outer bark off using my Bushcraft knife. I'm going to split it so that we've got nice cross sections, and I'll show you the resinous material. We'll get down to the fire pit and we're going to start a fire. So let's go and do it. Okay then folks, so here we are. It's time to actually put the Fatwood to work, and what I'm going to do, I've processed it. So in essence what I've done is I've just taken the outer bark off using my Bushcraft knife. Now, in order to get at the Fatwood effectively inside, what I intend to do is to just split the log, and in this case I am going, for accuracy, I'm going to use my Bushcraft knife rather than an axe, because the axe is fine for quite hefty work, but I'm going to batten, let's use a log. I'm going to use a log and my knife to batten a much more accurate split down the middle of my fat infused log. There we go, much safer than using the axe as well. Axes are great for doing bulk work, but when it comes to accuracy, the knife is the king. So now I've split my Fatwood log in half, and you can actually visually see where the material has infused, the resin has infused and come to rest in the base of that limb where it was attached to the tree. And that is what I'm really after. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to light the fire on my little wood stump here, and then I'm going to show you how I do it actually in the fire myself. So this is quite a straightforward process. Just to make it a little easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to batten my log in half yet again. Well, I wouldn't go as far as say it's a log, it's not quite that large, but just to get at that beautiful resin inside. Now, there we go. As you can see, beautiful stuff. What I intend to do now, get rid of that log, is just to use my knife, I'm wearing gloves for the purposes of safety, because, you know, we're using sharp implements. Accidents happen, and if you wear protective material, you're less likely to get an accident. So, using my knife, all I'm going to do now is run the knife down the length of that infused material, and my goal is, as most of it flies off my demonstration surface, to get lots of material in little bits and pieces which I can use to apply a spark to using my ferrocerium rod, which I will show you in just a moment. But this, we've done well here today, because this coniferous tree limb, God, you hear the horses nearby, they're having some fun over there. So as you can see, it's really heavily infused with Fatwood. I mean, the odour of it is particularly attractive, if you like pine and things like that. So it's coming off really nicely. This is really heavily infused with the material I want. I'm doing this rather quickly, but if I was taking my time, get lots of little pieces, lots of longer pieces, all going to be helpful to me in a moment. And as you can see, all I'm doing is trying to get little bits of the shavings which are infused with the material just here on my demonstration surface for you, so that when I in a moment use my ferrocerium rod, hopefully one of those sparks is going to land on one of these infused or resin infused bits of material, and it's going to give us a nice little fire. Now if you've got time, you know, you can spend as much time as you want to do this. You'd think those horses are being murdered over there, but they're not. I think there's just 2 horses which have been separated. And there we go. So, simple as that. Lots of little bits, lots of large bits. You can use the back of the blade if you want to get lots of little shavings off there. but this particular one seems to be very heavily infused with resin, which is always nice. Lots of little bits there, nice and easy. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, get it all together like that, get it all bunched up in a nice pile. That's it. I think that's a good batch. Now, this is my ferrocerium rod. Ferrocerium is an alloy, really, of a number of different materials, which, when brought together, when struck with a harder metallic substance, that creates a spark. Now, sometimes you can do it with your knife, back of your knife if you wish to use a spark that way. But this ferrocerium rod's been provided for me by Fitzroy Knives, which for me is a local brand from Bristol. They've provided the knife that I'm using in Oak Camp, and part of the sample which they provided me for using in this video series was also this ferrocerium rod, which is very reasonable priced. I think it's under £20, and it's amazing. It's one of the best ferrocerium rods, Firesteels as they're often called, that I've had. And it also comes with this little striker, which is, again, very practical indeed. So let's make sure we've got it. There we go, looking good. Now the goal here is to use the striker to get some of the material on the ferrocerium rod to come off, and those brightly glowing sparks land into my little bunch here of fat infused or resin infused fatwood, and it'll cause a flame. Should be a fairly straightforward process. Saying that, it doesn't happen on the first strike. It often takes a while to get it to go, depending on the ambient wind conditions, things like that. Today's looking good, so let's just give it a run. Oh, get it the right way. That's it. There we go. So we have flame. That was the goal. So those glowing sparks landed on my fat infused or resin infused wood, and it's caused them to burst into flames, and it's the resin which is burning now. It burns brightly, strongly, and as you can see, it's ideal for lighting a fire. So that's all I need. It's very good fat wood. As you can see, it is glowing plenty of flame there to get the fire started. So now I am just going to get my fire prepared, and we'll repeat that process, but we will start our campfire using exactly the same process. Okay, here we go. It's time to get this fire started. Now, as with most things in bushcraft, preparation is the key. And I've gone ahead and I've collected lots of dry sticks from the environment around me. There's no need to cut any living wood down. Lots of these sticks here. It's May, it's a warm time of year, there's no need to worry about it. So what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do, using some dry sticks, I'm going to build what I would describe as a raft at the base of my, what is my fire pit here? Different wherever you're going to be lighting your own fires. But as I say, I've collected these logs, or sticks rather, they're not logs, not big enough to call them logs. And I'm just creating a little, what you can call a raft at the base. So lots of sticks tightly packed together. And what I've got ready to go on top of that, I'm going to have 2 sticks, which I'm going to use. Let's pick a couple of good ones. I'm going to use these 2 here, and I'm going to form a V with them so that it'll give me a solid base. I'll explain and show you how it all works in a moment. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get my knife, and I am going to get my fat wood, and I'm now going to put a good little base of shavings ready here in the base of the fire, just as we did a moment ago, ready to catch some sparks from my ferrocerium rod. So let's do that for a moment. So there we go, folks. What we've done, we've created a nice little bundle of fat infused wood shavings there, and I've got my ferrocerium rod here again. And of course the goal is exactly what we just did. Let's get that lit using a strike from here. There we go, she's lit. Right, now we've got our fire lit. Our first job, get our small sticks and our V-shaped little logs here on top, put them on top. Simple as that. Now, the flames which are being created from that fat wood are going to catch our little logs first, or sticks rather, and you can see what this is all about. It's about creating enough air and enough fuel in the sticks to make the use of the heat being created by those fatwood infused shavings burning away. And as you can see already, those little sticks have caught, and in essence our sort of journey to creating fire has already started. Now I've got my little collection of bone dry sticks alongside. All I need to put them on as the smoke catches me in the face. And that is going to be a roaring fire in just a short period of time. And all I'm going to do is, as the fire gets better and stronger, I'm going to use the larger sticks which I've created in a tiered effect to go on top. And there we have a campfire, not using matches, not using a cigarette lighter or anything other than a knife, a saw, a Firesteel, and what we can find in any woodland, typically anywhere in Europe or any other part of the world. Now I'm going to step back out of the smoke for a moment. So there we go, folks. We now have a raging campfire and enough wood prepared, just easily obtained in the environment, to keep us warm, keep us in cooking materials for, well, as long as we need. And it didn't take very long at all. The beauty of lighting a fire using a Firesteel and a knife is that it's not like a match. It doesn't matter if it gets wet. A Firesteel will give you thousands and thousands of strikes. So it is the gift that keeps giving, really. And as you can see, fatwood harvest from the environment. It's dead wood, it's put to good use, and it allows us to start our fire reliably when we need it. And you know, if you see a beautiful coniferous tree which has died and the limbs are sticking out there, just saw one off and store the fatwood for the time that you need it. I keep some of my spare fatwood for the next fires that I need to make. And there's something extremely satisfying in being able to make a fire using something other than traditional methods. So it's time for me to get some food on the go now. Now I have my fire burning, and it took just, but a few minutes to achieve that. And that's something that can be replicated day after day. It doesn't matter the weather, you know, fatwood, Firesteel, it works every time. So I hope you've enjoyed this lighting a fire experience with me here at Oak Camp using fatwood, a knife, a saw and a Firesteel. If you have, give the video a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button. If you'd like to contribute to this conversation, leave a comment in the comment section below. If you'd like to support the channel, you can either buy me a coffee, which is quite straightforward, or even become a patron. And I provide additional videos for my patrons and extra sort of interaction with my patrons, whose names you will see at the end of the video. So until the next time, take care, stay warm, stay capable in the bush, and I will see you again very soon.